Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. As the top four race heats up in Serie A, Milan took advantage of their opportunity to build a gap against Atalanta. How did they do it? Where did Atalanta go wrong? Don't worry, here are the interviews. We've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Milan beat Atalanta. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how Atalanta looked to approach the game and why they frustrated Milan. Then move to the second half and briefly break down how Milan were able to put the game out of sight. But first, let's get to the starting lineup. So we look at Atalanta, more of a 3-4-1-2. Zapata and Ilicic ahead of Papu Gomez. Out in the wingback roles, Castagna and Hatabora, and in midfield, Freuler and Darun. Then we look to Milan 4-3-3, no real surprises there. Susu and Calhanoglu just in behind Piatek, and in midfield, Kessié, Bakayoko, and they went with Paqueta. So now let's look to the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game, and what Atalanta did to frustrate Milan. So when we look at Milan against Atalanta, one of the first things that we do have to stress is the way Atalanta approached the game. They were pressing high from the front, trying to close down Milan in their half, try to force them into mistakes. And the way that they did line up ensured that they were able to do that because they were able to get 1v1 battles across the pitch. When you look at it, you have Gomez and you have Ilicic stepping forward to close down the center backs. Papu Gomez was stepping to Bakayoko. Hatabor and Castagna were instructed to push to close down Calabria and Rodriguez. They had the midfield battle with Kessié out there. Kessié and Paqueta marked out of the game by Darun and Freuler. And then at the back, it was very simple. Toloi was stepping to Calhanoglu when he was dropping deeper. Suso did have a bit more freedom when he dropped into midfield to kind of help Milan out of problems, but when he got the ball with his back to goal, Palomino was tracking him across the pitch. Piatek was isolated from the game, so Gym City didn't really have any issues with that because he was lacking service in those areas. But Milan were struggling to create chances in that regard because, like I said, whether it be goal kicks or Milan trying to build from the back, they had Kessié with Freuler, they had Paqueta always marked out by Darun, although he did get the better of him on most occasions due to his technical ability, but that was how they were going about things. And on the opposite end, you had Milan pressing from the front as well from goal kicks, but you had Atalanta really taking the game to them, whereas Milan dropped off into more of a 4-5-1, and we did see some individual battles here that were key. We saw Bakayoko against Papu Gomez. Whenever Papu Gomez stood him up in a 1v1, Papu Gomez was getting the better of him. We did see Bakayoko do well against him to brush him off the ball when he was recovering. But for the most part, that was one key battle there. We saw Ilicic kind of dropping off into the space in midfield to the right channel. We'll get to that in a bit because most of Atalanta's main attacking threats stemmed down the right-hand side. It was because they were trying to get Hatabor to force Calhanoglu back into his half to mark men. They didn't want Rodriguez to push out to Hatabor when he was stepping forward, so Calhanoglu did a very good job of stepping into that zone, and they didn't mind Toloi pushing forward into midfield to play passes. So that was what they were kind of doing there. But with Ilicic kind of dropping off to stick to Rodriguez on some occasions, he did become a key cog, whereas Suso didn't really track back, and Palomino never really pushed forward. But like I said, a lot of their attacks did stem down the right-hand side. They did drop off into the more of that 4-5-1, and that was kind of how they were going about things, Milan. But at the end of the day, they had the best chances in the opening period, more of a 2-minute span, and that was what this game was about. It was about moments, because Milan had a 2-minute span, Atalanta had a 10-minute span, and eventually Milan were able to equalize towards the end of the half. We look at two of their better chances. We kind of saw what they were trying to do here. You had Calhanoglu dropping off, and he pulled out Toloi. He ended up switching the ball out to Castagna. Switching out to Calabria, and before Castagna could step to him, we saw him poke the ball into that right channel for Suso drifting into that space. So Suso drifts into that space. We see Castagna again trying to close down with Palomino, but then we see the run of Kessié pushing forward. The ball is poked into him, and he's able to turn Freuler with ease, get across him, but he fired a shot wide. But again, you kind of see what they're trying to do there, trying to quickly switch the ball out to one side, try and get their midfield runners forward, but that was a good opportunity for them. Kessié should have done better. We look to another opportunity. This time it's Calhanoglu pushing forward, playing the ball into Piatek, dropping off, and he laid it back to him to switch the ball out to Suso. And again, Suso is marked by Castagne, who was dropping off a bit deeper. You had Taloy dropped off, and he was occupying Piatek. And what happens there is that Freuler loses his man, and Kessié is able to switch out into that left half space there, and Hateboer doesn't mark him, so the cross into the box for Kessié, free on goal, but he nods his effort wide. But that's again Kessié getting away from Freuler. The ball switch out to Suso, relying on him to do the dirty, to him to provide that the creativity, because like we said, Suso often likes to drop deeper into a midfield zone, cut in on his marker, or fire, and most of the time fire a shot, but on the rare occasion where he does cross the ball, it's usually a good one for the most part, and that was what he was doing there. But that was how Milan were going about their business. They didn't really have another opportunity until the goal, and now we have to really get to what Atalanta was doing here. And like I said, when they drop off into more of a 4-5-1 Milan, Atalanta had more reason to push forward. Papu Gomez didn't really offer a threat, like I said, based off the fact that he was marked out of the game by Bakayoko, and he often had to drop off into deeper positions or pick up the ball just ahead of him. And Zapata did a good job with his back to goal, but again, no real service, where Ilicic was dropping off a bit deeper into that right channel to get on the ball. When we look to the build up to the goal, it's again Hateboer just getting forward after some great possession play from Milan, and he's able to poke the ball away from Calhanoglu, and it falls to Ilicic, who's able to run past Bakayoko and drag Rodriguez out to the byline before cutting back in and pulling it back to Freuler at the edge of the box, and he fired a shot past Donnarumma. Donnarumma should have done better there, but it just goes to show what they were trying to do, how they were going about their business. Hateboer ended up playing a key part because he kept pushing Calhanoglu deeper and deeper into his zone, and finally it paid off. We look to another opportunity where this time we have Darun dropping off into that space near the back three, and Paqueta doesn't get to him until late. Then what we end up seeing is that when Paqueta eventually steps to him, he finally plays a pass into Ilicic dropping off, and he drags out Rodriguez there. So as he drags out Rodriguez, Calhanoglu's kind of in no man's land, and we have Hateboer making the run in behind him for Ilicic to turn Rodriguez and clip the ball into that space. As Hateboer is driving forward, he cuts back in and lays it up to Papu Gomez ahead of Bakayoko, but he ends up bending his effort wide. But again, down the right-hand side, great movement, pulling markers out of position, ensuring that they could quickly move the ball and maneuver it out into the right-hand zone. That is what Atalanta was about. One of their final opportunities, again, we see something similar. We see Darun slide the ball out to Hateboer in the right channel in a deeper position. As he drags it out, you have Paqueta stepping to him, and then you have Calhanoglu there, but he gives the ball back to Darun and ends up making that run centrally in behind Calhanoglu. With that being said, now we have Ilicic dropping off to drag out Rodriguez, and Darun again slides it to Ilicic there, and we have Hateboer continuing his run down the right side ahead of Calhanoglu, and Ilicic clips it over Rodriguez for him, and he drives into that right zone. Again, Calhanoglu exposed in that position, and he fires a shot through the 6-yard box. Zapata can't get to it as he's marked off, but again, you're just seeing it down the right-hand side. Atalanta going about their business, finding and exposing Milan and pulling them out of position. And as good as the end of that first half went, it took what was again more of a systematic issue from Atalanta for Milan to pull ahead, along with a moment of brilliance. And what we do see is Rodriguez is able to push forward, and Rodriguez pushes forward. You expect Hateboer to step to him, but Hateboer was ended up focusing on Kessié, who moved out into that left channel on the touchline. So with Rodriguez pushing forward, if Kessié is out of the game, marked out of the game by Hateboer, you expect Freuler, who's supposed to be Freuler or Darun, whoever is free, because one of them have to be free here, who should be marking Kessié, to step out. They don't end up doing that, and what happens here is that Rodriguez is able to clip the ball into the box for Piatek to get ahead of his marker and finish superbly into the back post. And like I said, it was a moment of brilliance by Piatek, but in those situations towards the end of the half where Atalanta was closing down Milan at every opportunity, they had to do the defensive work there, and they allowed Rodriguez to deliver a free cross into the box, and Piatek, who was trying to be lively, got ahead of his marker and eventually caused some damage to make it 1-1 going into halftime, because besides Jim City's free headers from corner kicks and the chances down the right-hand side, neither side really offered much of a threat. They were closed out based off Milan's pressing from the front and the fact that Atalanta were closing down all across the pitch. So now let's get to the second half, see if there were any changes in how Milan were able to close out the game. When we briefly look at the second half, we saw Atalanta still approach the game with that high intense pressure. We saw them closing down as we expected, and nothing really changed in the terms of the general way that they were trying to play. We saw Bakayoko eventually dispossess Ilicic in the opening minutes, but as we get into Atalanta briefly getting towards goal, they kind of approach the game in the same manner. We saw Ilicic dropping off into that right-hand zone. What we ended up seeing there was Paqueta eventually shifting over, and as Paqueta shifted over, he was able to poke the ball into Zapata, who was backing into Romagnoli and able to turn him as he was driving forward and pull the ball back through the 6-yard box, but no one was able to attack it. That was one way where we again see Ilicic and the importance of him dropping off deeper into that zone to provide an outlet for Zapata as he looked to back in and try to utilize his presence around the box. So that was one opportunity. We eventually saw Suso dropping off to try and get the ball, and Palomino was able to track him and dispossess him around half. And like we said, that was how they were trying to go about things with the 3v3, and they were doing more so a great job there. And that ball eventually fell to Papu Gomez, who was able to push forward, but he skied his effort wide of the net. He wasn't having the greatest of games. He eventually was taken off for Kulusevski. He didn't really offer much in that number 10 role either. And then we have to look to how Milan were able to get their goals. And this was more about, like the first goal, just defensive issues and the fact that Milan were able to be effective and clinical around the box. And it just took their ability to really maximize their opportunities. Like I said, we saw Paqueta push forward on the break and shifted out to a narrow Calhanoglu. And as he shifts it out to a narrow Calhanoglu, he plays a poor pass, is slightly overhit to Rodriguez. And from there, we end up seeing Atalanta drift back into their zone and more of a 5-man backline. We didn't see that often because they often controlled more of the game in the first half. But Rodriguez is crossed into the box, is cleared by Hateboer into the path of Calhanoglu, and he instantly fires a rocket past the keeper, and that is how they go up 2-1. But again, Hateboer probably should do better in that regard, clearing those lines. Cleared it right to Calhanoglu, free on goal, and he was able from distance to make the most of it. A moment of brilliance, sure, but that they should do better in that regard. And then when you look to the goal to kill off the game, a corner kick, Piatek rises above Hateboer and Jim City to nod his effort past the keeper, and that's again poor set piece defending. Have to do a better job there, and that was how Milan were going about their business. We eventually saw Gozin come into the game, and he switched sides to left wing back. Hateboer moved to right wing back, but at this point, Milan were able to drop off deeper into their shape in their 4-5-1. Now the onus was on Atalanta to push forward, and they were unable to really cause Milan any problems. We saw one opportunity where Toloi was able to step forward and play a pass in between Paqueta and Bakayoko for Ilicic, who was able to just quickly turn and fire a shot into side netting. Then we saw another opportunity where you had the ball pushed out into the right-hand zone for it was Castagna. He pushed it out into the right-hand zone. What happened there was that we saw Ilicic drag out Rodriguez and eventually pull it back to Castagna at the edge of the box, but that didn't do anything to test Donnarumma. So when you break down the game and you look at it, yes, Atalanta were pressing very well and causing Milan a lot of problems, but they weren't really creating any chances. And if we have to be honest, Donnarumma's mistake should have been a save. So that was how they were able to get their goal. But they did expose space down the right-hand side by challenging Calhanoglu to track back and deal with Hateboer and have Ilicic push into that space to force him to do that. But on the other hand, Milan were just very clinical when the chances were presented to them, when they got a bit of space. Piatek, who has made the difference this season, did rise to the occasion, and Milan did kind of keep Papu Gomez out of the game, so you have to give them credit there. And like I said, they executed defensively, they stuck to their shape, and they were able to really hold out, and now they have a game changers in midfield with Paqueta, who offers something different, and Piatek, who's able to finish off the chances, and that's the main difference for Milan here. But let me know what you guys think. Will Milan finish in the top 4, and does this loss kind of ruin any chance of Atalanta sneaking into one of those top 4 spots as well? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.